Okay, so here's something I'm going to ask you. What was the root cause of the most stressful thing at work? Was it the work environment, or was it home, trying to balance demands at home and create the illusion you're at work? So when we start to get through this, one of the things I want to start talking to you about is a concept. Before I get into it too far, there's a thing called presentism, and there's a word called discretionary effort. I think it's important not to hallucinate. We all use the same words. Discretionary effort is a voluntary motivation to go above and beyond the minimal requirements to do your best work. If you're working at 6, 7, or 8 at night, you're doing it and you're feeling good inside. There's a feedback loop. You feel good. From what you're doing, there's pride, and you get reward. If you're working a 7, 8, 9 at night, and because you feel you have to get work done, and it's coercive, that puts people on the path for burnout. It's completely different. There's lots of people who compliance-driven put lots of good effort in. That's not discretionary effort. Getting more out of people is not discretionary effort. People willingly give more is. On the other side is a concept called presentism. It's the involuntary motivation to come to work to attempt to do the minimal standard, which most people rarely can do. And the root cause of it is chronic pain, chronic disease, mental health. You've heard of burnout. The antithesis of burnout is rust out. People bored in what they do, and they do their job because they need to pay their bills. So they're trying to survive. And one of the challenges is when people have presentism, they don't have purpose. So when you woke up this morning, I'd like you to think about this for a minute. Remember when you woke up and you walked into the mirror and you looked in the mirror? How many of you looked at yourself and said, damn, I'm good looking inside and out. I love who I am, and I can't wait to get to work. Yeah, we got a few. That's encouraging. The reality is having purpose. When you get challenged in your workplace, one of the things often is work can be exciting. Not all stress is bad. There's eustress. That's a good stress. That's a thing that feeds your soul and gives you purpose. However, when you start interacting and stress starts to hit you and becomes a little bit overwhelming to the point where it starts to get to challenging, a person can move from eustress along a continuum to what's called distress. We'll have hypo or hyper-arousal. We have a natural tendency. And symptoms are usually our defense mechanism. When you put your hand on the stove, what do? Leave it there or move it? Hopefully move it. That's the right answer for this in case some of you don't know. I just want to make sure it's an educational piece to this course too. And then if you do realize is that anxiety and depression are symptoms, and they're telling us something. We have a difference between what we want and what we have. And many of us don't realize we get caught in loops, and I'll talk about loops in a minute. And what's interesting for me is when you start thinking about stress, stress to me is kind of the root of it all. How do we manifest our stress in our life? Some of us are really good at creating stress. You might know some of those people. And some people just, that's their job. They're skilled at it. They may not know it, but we all have to have a purpose. But on a serious note, the thing I learned from my mentor, Dr. William Glasser, is that most people that are discouraged people actually behave discouraged. And that we sometimes judge them. And a part of having a little bit of sense of humor as a counselor, one of the things I realized, most of us are doing the best we can with what we have. And that nobody in the world, common sense is a word I'd like you to eliminate from your vocabulary. Because I think common sense is actually abusive, because what we're doing is we're taking our subjective frame of reference, our referential frame of reference, and assuming other people see the world the same as we do. So when it starts to come to stress, it's easy for me to say, oh, that's not stressful. But we don't know what's below the iceberg. We don't know the conversation that person might have had 9 minutes ago when their wife just said, by the way, I was with the milkman again. You don't know what's really happening in people's lives. All you see is a surface. And one of the things we need to do is stop spending time evaluating other people and spend more time thinking about what we can do better for ourselves and for our community, and what are we giving back. From a social responsibility, do we wake up every day with purpose of what we're going to contribute and how we're going to make things better? Because purpose is how people get peace. And gratitude is a way that people get peace. And the people that have the greatest gratitude, are grateful for what they have and spend a lot of time giving and sharing and thinking, are the people who will end up with more peace. And now in our world, as we start to get challenged, I know we all did high school and we were trying to worry about those exams the night before. Well, what happens with stress is we start to get motivated, we go through it, we get challenged, we get worry. The challenge is when we feel overwhelmed. It gets to the point where it's okay, but it's how long does this go on for? The thing to think about stress when it becomes a problem is called frequency, duration, and intensity. So you can have moments, like when someone moves your coffee cup. You know that? You don't know that? And you get upset. People can go bursts and they go through these kind of moments. But the thing I'd like you to consider about stress is what happens when people go through stress. And what happens when people have so much stress that they can't actually process. And if we take a second to pause with where we're at, one of the things that's important to ponder is how do we actually process our life before we actually start interacting with the day. So for example, let's take a look up here. Imagine you only had 10 brain units. I know you have more than that, so I'm not trying to be honest to God, I know you have more than 10. But it doesn't hallucinate that you had 10 brain units. Money, career, relationships, self, and health. On a typical day, before the world even starts sending any joy of information, how many brain units do you spend thinking about money? 98% of the population doesn't have it, 2% have it. Debt in our country right now is high. Credit card debt is at all-time high. Career, 60-70% of the population don't like what they're doing. They project in the next year that approximately around 22 to 26% of millennials will change their job. So their transformation of the millennial generation, we talk about it, and then we're starting to talk about the next generation now that's happening is Generation Z, how they're going to interface and how they're going to change the world. So the millennials are old news. It's my generation. I got 3 teenagers. Anyone have teenagers here? Okay, see, you know what I mean? Okay, so relationships, you think about separation, divorce, 50% of the population. How many people have been here married for 25 years? Okay, between 25 and 32, just to let you know, I told my wife last week, we're at statistical risk. Right, it just jumped. But we have to ride it out hard the next 7 years because I told her I'm a flight risk now. I'm up a couple more points, so just pay attention. Self-esteem, focusing on yourself, and health. And here's what I'd like you to do. Simply think about this. Think about how McNamoni's were thinking about mental health is. Think about 3 out of 5 Canadians are pegged with markers of chronic disease by the age of 20. Think about type 2 diabetes, how big that problem is in our country, and what it can do in the next 10 years if we don't get ahead of it. Chronic diseases that are avoidable. Cardiac disease, or diabetes type 2. And you start looking at it, you'll start to notice, Bill's gone. Money, career, relationship, self, and health. Money and career, most people are spending between 5 and 7 brain units on that. And then they have 5 for the top 3. And then lots of people, when they come to health, they just don't have any energy. It was a good idea, and what lots of people do with health, they think about what they're going to do tomorrow. And they make excuse for today. Oh, I'm going to eat salad tomorrow. I'm going to do this, have my plan tomorrow. But today, since I'm miserable, I better have this pizza. Like tomorrow, I can see greens in my future. And what happens is I live each day, and what happens is I'm going to start to get into things around micro decisions and micro behaviors and coping skills and those things that you can do. However, the thing that many people are mindfully unaware of, or maybe the pain of what they have, they can't process future pain yet because they're dissociating it from where they know they're going because the pain of today, they're just unhappy. And they engage in behaviors that are unhappy for them today, but because they can't see a future. And what happens for many people as we start to see through this is that lots of people are going through different levels. And when I look at workforce productivity, I look at a baseline. The fact is most of our workforce is in a functional or crisis state.